Welcome, everybody. We've got folks coming in pretty soon. Ann will take over, but thanks for joining us.
We had over 50 people registered today, so see those numbers come in.
50 is the new 100.
We'll go with that. All right, we're just going to wait another minute and then we will kick things off shortly. David, does it feel strange to be having an event not in VR?
Yes,
VR
it
so
does.
much.
It does. We're going to have to figure out how to, you know what will feel strange if we don't do more VR next year? In person will feel really strange once we get back to that. Hopefully we do it. Hopefully
nobody tries that trick with the beer bottles in VR and in person. So we'll have to keep an eye on everybody.
Yeah, my yard's a little bit of a mess trying to throw the 6-pack and then catch it.
Use the rubber ones.
That's right. Yes, it's time to go to Hollywood.
All right, I'm seeing people continue to join. So I'm going to kick things off and do a few opening remarks here before we get started. I just wanted to welcome everyone for joining today's community hour. The last community hour was in VR, so it's kind of nice to be back here on the screen with everybody and hopefully sometime soon in person again. My name is Ann Sari. I am the Executive Director for the Converged User Group. So welcome everyone. Thank you for being here. If you are not familiar with the Converged User Group, we are a community that is really focused on connecting users who are using or maybe exploring Dell CI and HCI technologies and solutions. We do that through a variety of different ways. It can be through events such as this, where we're bringing everyone together to share ideas and best practices, and also in person at events when we get back there, hopefully next year. We also have resources online and provide a lot of different ways to connect and make sure that we're helping provide members with the resources and tools to be successful. So we have some great upcoming events between now and the end of the year that we'll touch on before we wrap up today. But as far as today's event goes, I just wanted to remind everybody to please use the Q&A for any questions. We have lots of great speakers here today, so you can use the Q&A tool for questions and also the discussions, the chat. Make sure to use for any discussions throughout the program. There'll also be some polling today, so keep an eye out for the polls. Would love your feedback there, and a survey. We do surveys and they are so helpful for us. They really help us plan future events and programming. So keep an eye out for that link as well. Your feedback is always greatly appreciated. And with that, I will pass it over to David Giesica with the Converged User Group and Dell Technologies. He will kick off today's program. David?
Fantastic. Thank you, Ann. And thank you everybody for joining. Welcome to another Converged Community Hour. It was really fun doing it in VR. And for those of you who are around and with us during VMworld, we had a lot of fun in VR for 2 days, October 6th and October 7th. We'll get those recordings, if you missed it, up on the website shortly. Today, we've got another fantastic community hour for you. I'm joined with a great panel, and we're going to kick around. I'm going to call this VxRail Then and Now, but I'm sure it will take its own path, and maybe we'll rename it after we finish the conversation. I'm joined today by my special guest, and we'll call him co-host, Chris Stanley, who's a Converged User Group board member. So that's why you get the co-host status, Chris. He's also head of IT and security at LoopUp. As well, customer Pramod Garlapati, director, global infrastructure and core services, Mohawk Industries. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining today. And Nancy Hurley, Senior Manager, HCI and CI Product Marketing, Dell Technologies. Nancy, thank you very much for joining us as well.
Thank you, David.
Folks, before we dig in, let's set a little context for everybody. This is the Converged user group. So we've got two fantastic customer members here, Chris and Pramod. You guys are longtime members, longtime experience with CI and HCI. And actually, both of you in the past 18 months or so took on new roles with your roles and responsibilities and even shifting companies. So let's share a little brief background. Chris, you are over in the UK, so you are much ahead of us in time. We'll start with you.
I won't tell you what happens in a day.
Well,
Hi, everyone. Yeah, Chris Stanley. I'm head of IT and security at LoopUp. We are a telecoms company specializing in cloud telephony. Direct routing as a service for Microsoft Teams calling is our main product. I was formerly at Celtic Manor some 18 months ago, March 2020, and I was there for some time. And that was in the hospitality industry. Lots of events there, hotel rooms, spas, all the pretty stuff. So two of the very different roles I've had.
thanks, Chris. That's great. Pramod, share a little about what you do and what Mohawk does, please.
Sure. Guys, Pramod here. I'm Director of Global Infrastructure and Core Services, as David mentioned. Nice meeting you, everyone here. Mohawk is a global leader in flooring and tiles. So we are into manufacturing. So if you don't blame me, if you're seeing the higher prices for your homes or any of the accessories you're buying for home. So that's supply chain, guys. I came from Incom, also called Interactive Communications, which is a fintech, which belongs to a fintech industry. Incom primarily process all the gift card transactions. I believe it's like 80%. Incom process 80% of the global gift card transactions.
Yeah, that's incredible. Thanks, Pramod. So Nancy, we are joined with two customers covering experience in 4 different verticals. So this really sets up for a great conversation. And folks, if you do have questions, please ask them in the chat. We'll work those into the conversation. But Nancy, with that background, both of these guys have experience with VxRail. I have to say, there's been a ton of stuff that's been happening with VxRail, and for me, it's very hard to keep up with. So, you know, we had the NVIDIA focused event back during VMworld. So that's really cool. And I'd love to get into that if folks want to bring that in. But before we get there, you know, there's even, you guys announced stuff last week. Maybe even this week, things are a blur for me. So what do members need to know about what's happened with VxRail and what's going on right now?
Yeah, there is a lot. No question. You know, like you said, it's a blur for you. Sometimes it's a blur for us. Our product team just is amazing in how much innovation they continue to drive out to the market, both from a software and a hardware and a platform perspective. And I want to talk about some of the latest announcements, but I think first we wanted to do a poll of the folks in the audience, right?
Yes, so we do. And you know what? As always with these new things and technologies and bouncing around from Zoom to VR and back to Zoom, we've got a little bit of a snag that we're going to introduce with the poll. It's not much of a, well, we're going to give all the questions at once. We'll let everybody answer the questions now, and then we can refer to those during the rest of the webcast. So folks, we've got a little bit of interactivity for you. All right, so we were trying to put these, you know, piecemeal, but we've got them all together. Please take a few minutes, take a look at the questions, answer the questions, and then this will help guide our conversation. So while we're doing this, so Nancy, we've got the poll up. Satellite nodes, right? Satellite nodes came out. So talk to me quick about satellite nodes as we give folks some time to run through the polls.
Sure. Actually, I want to talk about 2 new nodes that
great.
New node platforms that we have: the satellite nodes and the dynamic nodes. And the reason I want to bring them up together is these are slightly different than our traditional VxRail nodes because neither of them actually have vSAN. So let me talk about that a little bit. So first,
Does VMware know this?
They do. They are our joint engineering partner, and they're right there all along with us. They're excited about these. So the satellite node. So the satellite node is really primarily targeted at edge use cases. So these are for, workloads, use cases where you can run it on a single node. So this is a single node rail deployment, where, the cluster availability, high availability is not really a requirement. And at the edge and the further out at the edge you might go, there's plenty of potential workloads that you have out there. Like I said, they run vSphere, not vSAN. There is some local internal disk. However, they're managed by the central console, a central VxRail cluster. So there's always, the connectivity requirement. These, where they're single nodes, we wanted to be very deliberate about not calling them single nodes because we didn't want people to think you could run them all on their own. Right, they're managed by a central VxRail cluster, but the connection is really just control path. So you can lose connectivity, another important thing at the edge, right, just based on whatever those pipes might be. But the connection is really for the management of those nodes. And the fact that they're single nodes, don't, think of that and think that low powered, right? These are our next generation based on Ice Lake. Intel CPUs, they have GPUs in them, obviously, because a lot of edge applications need the GPU capability. So they're really powerful. And again, just one quick thing, but your existing rail clusters today, whether they're 13, whatever generation they are, 13G, 14G, I know Intel doesn't really like us using those terms, but everybody is so familiar with them, that those clusters can manage these new nodes. And so they're really exciting for those use cases. The other nodes that we announced those last week. Yep. I think it was last week, and they'll be available in November.
Okay.
Now the dynamic nodes we had announced in June, and they became available last month for folks. And again, these are nodes that are run vSphere, but not vSAN. Big difference though between these nodes and the satellite nodes is that you don't have internal disk. These are really meant for independent scale of compute and storage in a VxRail environment, right? Okay. So what you might have is, say you have some excess vSAN storage capacity within your VxRail cluster. You can add, have a dynamic node cluster that's compute only and point it at that vSAN storage and utilize that. That's what VMware refers to as HCI mesh, right? Another use case that you have is you can attach external storage as primary storage to these dynamic nodes. And the core use case for that is, say, in a VMware Cloud Foundation on VxRail environment, where you have a particular workload domain that might need all the functionality of some of our, higher end storage, like, so it attaches to Power Max or to Power Store and the like, and you need all those data services. But the management domain will be the VxRail cluster that's totally integrated up through the SDVC stack, that you can have a workload domain with external storage as primary storage. So those are super, exciting things for folks to be able to further deploy rail across their environment with new potential workloads across the core, the cloud, and the edge.
Yeah, that's really cool. And talking with Pramod and Chris earlier with their history, it's almost like some of this might, well, I want to get into what their perspectives are on that, but we've got the poll results here. So let's cover this real quick. All right, so it looks like workloads, most folks did more than one workload in the early days on VxRail initially, and now certainly getting much more workloads on as we might expect. Mm-hmm. All righty, and then this is, so we've got a majority of folks reporting that they're running VxRail in the core. Looks like 64% there. And then expectations. Okay, 10 to 25% is the majority over the next, but then we've got, if you add 50% and 75% up, so 36%. So
Wow.
interesting. All right, great. Well, thanks for participating, folks. That's good. Pramod, does that surprise you at all? Chris, does that surprise you at all?
I mean, excited, right? VxRail came a long way, basically. VxRail, from where it started to now, it's excited to see how it grew as an offering. Dynamic nodes, I'm really interested to look at it further. Definitely want to learn more about it.
I was
But,
thinking you might dial into dynamic nodes.
Yeah, it's
I mean-
an interesting option. I mean, from what I understand so far, it would be a great option to, one of the great option to run data center workloads that still require SAN in the traditional manner, and probably where you'll have heavy transaction workloads, I think.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. You know,
Yeah, I
I
think
know
you can still-
you're a fan of Extreme IO back in the day, right?
Believe me, I'm still a fan of Extreme IO. That's my favorite array so far. I think dynamic nodes bring a unique opportunity while keeping the same experience what you have and still running them as we need to run. So I think I'll be interested to learn more about dynamic nodes.
Yeah, cool. Chris, the satellite nodes, you know, to me, knowing your history, the Celtic Manor campus, you know, is that something that what are your thoughts with like the history? If the satellite node was an option back when you were at Celtic Manor, would that have changed the way you might have architected some of your stuff?
Potentially. I mean, like the poll reflects, I mean, VxRail is very much core of that data center, those data centers there. And knowing what my colleagues have in store now in the next few years with expansion hotels and satellite nodes.
They're growing crazy, and you really set them up to be able to grow like crazy.
Yeah, there's a lot of Dell everything there at Celtic Manor. If you want a reference site, then Dell networking, backup, VxRail, it's got everything. But yeah, and I mean, it was a huge campus, 3,000 acres. So where you have a cloudy, maybe it's not the wrong word, but a varied amount of technology at the edge in a lot of circumstances, you can now simplify that to what we've done, you know, VxRail done with the data centers. So things like point of sale, etc. It's especially in that industry, it would, you know, be something that would have a lot of potential to run with those.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was thinking point of sale. Nancy, I cut you off.
That's okay. So one thing I actually do want to mention too, and this might be interesting to both of you and to hopefully to the audience as a whole. Obviously, I was talking about rolling out new platforms. Every time we roll out new platforms, we also have updates to our VxRail HCI system software. And that's what really drives all the orchestration and automation capability. Well, one of the things that we just added in actually is the ability to self-deploy VxRail nodes. And so, why is that a software thing? Well, one of the key things that we added in was the configuration manager, right? To enable people to do all of that remote configuration and the like. And the other thing too is you can now also re-image nodes. So if you want to deploy a node somewhere else, like I know, Pramod, you're up for some refresh, maybe re-image some of the ones that you have right now to go for another use case. And those are some of the pretty interesting things that are available as well. And it was interesting, the announcement about the self-deploy, this came out, and Chad Dunn, who runs all of our product management, sent a message out to the team that it was a while ago, years ago, that they said, we really want to get customers to be able to self-deploy. And it took a little longer, but it's like so much more than they had ever thought of, because of how, with that configuration manager and all the rest of that, of the simplicity now that they're providing the customers. And we don't expect every customer to do this, but when you're talking about edge deployments, and you're talking about thousands of edge deployments,
yep.
This is a really big thing for folks. And I just want to notice there was a question in the Q&A about single nodes being expandable, the satellite nodes. They're not. They'll always be a single node. So this is not something that you'll put into a cluster.
So
It's like you could have multiple individual single nodes at a place, but they're not meant to cluster. They are in fact just a single node at all times. And somebody else asked about key management, and yes, all the same management functionality that's in a Rail, with of course the exception of the storage management because vSAN's not there.
Very cool. Very cool. So Pramod, we talked about your edge locations with manufacturing. Can you dig into that a little bit with folks? Particularly, you've got, what do you have? You have manufacturing sites that are easily connectable to, and then you've got manufacturing sites that are kind of out in the boonies. Is that a way to describe it?
Good wording.
You can keep it one way that way, but
You have
so,
manufacturing sites that take advantage of low labor costs or low
talk
land
about
costs.
everything. Yeah, talk about everything, David. Low real estate costs, labor costs, power, everything, right? So of course, it's economics. I mean, it's a manufacturing. Right. So manufacturing is a different industry. I mean, when I came to this job, I didn't know anything about manufacturing. But in the last 1 year, I learned a lot of data behind how we do things and why we do things. So Mohawk has like hundreds of plants across the United States and across the world, to be honest.
Globe, yeah.
Yeah. Specifically in North America, what we do is we identified almost 20 to 25 strategic locations, which plants are very important for our, products to go onto shelves quickly and to our vendors, basically. At this 25 locations, what we have done is we have deployed a remote data center pod. We call it ourselves a pod, remote data center pod. So within this remote RDC pod, what we will have is a VxRail, a small Isilon, and a data domain unit. What the essential role of this pod is to support that plant operations. The VMs or the servers that are very essential for the plant to run and operate 24/7 are hosted on these locations. Of course, we have all the mechanisms to, do a DR, backup, ship it back to the primary data centers. We have all those things. But the essential functions, the primary function of this workload is to support the manufacturing plant to run 24/7. We cannot afford downtime. Yep. That being said, we have different sizes of VxRails at these locations, and we run different kind of workloads. Some plants, again, as I told, Mohawk is the product line is very diverse. We have flooring, we have tile, we have ceramics, we have all over the place. So depending upon the plant, we run different workloads. At some of our plants, we run Oracle databases at edge. At some of our plants, we run AGVs, which are guided vehicles, which will move the workload from physical workload from one pallet of workload from one location to other location. So that's a little bit about how we leverage VxRails, David.
Okay, great. So you've got high-end databases, the Oracle databases. You've got these AGVs, or basically autonomous robots that help move your material from like raw material through to finished product. And all of that sits out at this remote manufacturing site, which when there's connectivity can talk back to your core. But my understanding is the pipe is either unreliable or very small. So it needs to be that site needs to be self-sufficient and self-contained.
Right. So I wouldn't call it a doomsday scenario, but we have to plan for all the failure scenarios. Right. One of the failure scenario is, what if the WAN link between primary data center and the remote goes down? There are a number of factors that can make it happen. So what we want to do is we want that plant to be self-sufficient, irrespective of the bandwidth and irrespective of the number of parameters we have that can go wrong between plant and the remote data center. So that's why we deploy this remote pods onto these plants. As you told, yes, some of the plants are in extreme remote locations where we have very less pipe, like 10 megs, something like that. So we cannot push all the workload through that extremely tiny pipe all the time without incurring a lot of latency. So that's another reason we deploy these workloads at remote data centers.
Cool. Thanks. And Chris, you came to Loop Up. Well, I mean, if you were playing the stock market with your job run from Celtic Manor to Loop Up, I don't think you'd be here today because you left the hospitality industry right before lockdown and joined telecom remote Teams telephony company right at the beginning of lockdown.
I did. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know the lottery numbers, but yeah, it was.
I want a piece of that luck.
Well, thankfully, I mean, yeah, the hospitality industry is picked up massively as well now as part of it. But yeah, from a remote meetings, telephony, telecoms industry, I mean, it was booming when I joined in March 20. It was 4 times, 5 times the amount of traffic they would normally have as people adjusted to that. So it was. Is fun the right word? It was an interesting start, yes.
Exciting.
Yeah, exciting. But with that, I mean, it's how do you scale quickly? What are your options when something like that happens? I mean, we scaled a lot into Azure and other cloud repositories because of the amount of infrastructure that was required. But we've now sort of tailored that back to on-prem and a VxRail solutions now within our global data centers. So whereas Pramod has challenges with bandwidth at data centers being what we do with telecoms, we can't have any latency. We have to have high speed and connectivity globally, and not just for our voice, but for if we want to replicate between our VxRail nodes in UK and US. It's something that we need as our backup solution as well. So Dell IDPAs is again something that runs vSphere VMware that we use again to sort of keep it in that family and for simplicity. So yeah, it's been interesting 18 months. Done a lot.
And the so you've inherited high growth, and you moved over to VxRail in a UK data center and VxRail now in a North America data center.
Correct. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, Loop Up when I joined, there was we'd acquired businesses in the past, so there was maybe a lot of different technologies.
Disparate.
Yeah, people had that. Different companies had their different ideas, but still very good. But you could have a lot of good stuff, but it does make you more efficient. So it was kind of, how can we consolidate this, make this more efficient, not just for ourselves to manage, but for customers to sort of reap the rewards. And VxRail as a core product is an easy start. Well, Pramod can sort of back this up. As you move industries, there's always a common factor. I mean, and VxRail in both of where I've been, extreme differences in the industries, but there's a lot of similarities back of house and still similar challenges you face. So as a core product, it's one of our go-tos, and yeah, I'd be, if I do move on or in the future, it'd be interesting to see. I'll take on another different sector and see if it works there as well. I have no doubt it will.
And that's great to hear. And actually, it's kind of a good segue into, when we started the conversation, David said that he was calling the title of this Then and Now, right? And one of the things that, from our perspective, from Dell's perspective, is we really want to try and help people understand the breadth of what you truly can do with VxRail. Right. I've just talked about 2 nodes that we just introduced that expand from edge, but across the core, across the edge, across the cloud, like how much you can truly do. And so, we talked about where you guys are at today, but when you first started with VxRail, because I know you both have history with VxRail, like, what did you start with? And then what was it that about VxRail that gives you the kind of confidence that you want to bring it to the next place? I'm curious about your perspective there.
Pramod, you wanna kick that one off?
Sure. Experience is a big, I think it's a primary factor in me deciding to go with VxRails again. So I would be very honest. I'm always a straight speaker, so I'll do this. Can we not build a VxRail ourselves, something similar to VxRail? Absolutely, we can. It's nothing. It's like vSAN based on hardware, so we can do it ourselves. But what brings us back to VxRail again and again is the experience. It's one vendor holding accountability from top to bottom, from an hardware, software, performance, everything. So Dell being a great partner to us on the other products as well, we can hold Dell accountable, and they've always made their promise come true so far. And that's what is bringing back us to VxRail again and again. As a matter of fact, I'll tell this as well with your permission, Nancy and David. TCO works as well. Total cost of ownership, when you take everything into account, it works perfectly well. Although VxRail seems to be a little expensive at the beginning, but when you account all the labor cost and all the maintenance ongoing, the overhead cost, VxRail TCO makes perfect sense. So I think that's a reason why I come back to VxRail again and again. Two primary reasons.
And Pramod, with that, with the care and feeding taken care of, so to speak, what has that enabled you? Has that freed up time for your team? And, have you helped them advance their kind of focus from, I don't know, were they ever
Absolutely.
racking and stacking, or doing the updates to where, like, talk towards that people side a little bit, please.
Absolutely. So as I told, experience, right? So that's what. So sorry, guys. There's a lawn moving going on in the back of the office.
Should we pause that? We'll let Chris weigh in, and then we'll come back to you once the lawnmower's gone. All right, we'll try it.
It's the AGVs. They're just
Yeah,
going to his
exactly.
office.
They're revolting.
Pramod has some very nice looking grass out there. Sorry, what was the question, Dave? Were we going back to how we started off? And
we're going back to the life cycle, or I guess I'll ask the finished question to you, Chris. By handing a lot of the daily care and feeding over to Dell and just having VxRail do that, what did that free up your team to do? How did you, did you help them on professional development? Did you need to get them from racking and stacking to better understanding? Talk a bit about the people side.
Yeah, the people side is massive, and it's different in both industries that I've been in. So Celtic Manor, it was a small team, it's hospitality, so IT is not seen as the main focus, and you have challenges with budget with other departments and maintenance departments, marketing, we're getting all of them, but these sort of things, and so trying to take some of the workload off those guys day to day, just the management of it, having all under one roof, and as Pramod says about the support thing, the support is invaluable. I mean, I'm at an industry now where it's global. I'm in my data centers, and I have one call to make, instead of trying to bring several different people in different countries, on however that technology lies. So it's freed up more time, and it's allowed the guys now to get away from some of the mundane day-to-day stuff that we've in IT and technology we've done over the years. Your Windows updates, these sort of things which you would do it on a regular basis. The VMware patching day-to-day. I mean, we even get support from Dell support, VMware support to do these as well, and depending on your support package, they'll do the whole thing for you. So that kind of stuff, which is time consuming, and it takes a lot of time, maybe where guys could be training and excelling themselves, hopefully not leaving my team because they're better educated and have more qualifications, but their value then goes up, and from a business driver, it gives us more responsibility if we want that as well. within the certain areas of the site. So yeah, from that pure people side of things, yeah, it's freed up a lot of time. I learned that very much in Celtic Manor, and now as I've come to an industry where there was maybe different or a lot of technologies before, we try to consolidate that. Obviously, trying to maintain one stack and one vendor with one call is a lot easier with 10. So you're not wasting your time on calls. You're not spending hours, weeks, months, or whatever. Some of these calls and support cases can raise. So it's invaluable in that sense.
That's great. Looks like also, I'm just looking at the chat. Chris, do you know Phil Thomas?
I do. Phil at Constore.
All right.
Phil and his team helped us with our VxRail deployments in UK and US. There you go. There's your shout out.
Yes, yes.
There we go. Great. Pramod, is the mower gone?
I think so for now.
All right. You sound good. All right. Great. So what about, the TCO, and then how's it impacting your team, or what's it allowing you to do with your team?
Yes, I mean, always, this is a people perspective, right? So people always want to do something new. They don't want to do this daily mundane stuff every day. I'll give you an
the
example.
People that you guys like want to do new things. The folks that don't want to do the new things, you probably kind of can cull away and put them away.
They get replaced by robots for Pramod, don't they?
You always have two types of people. You talk about the better, not the other side. So yes, David, I echo what Chris, right? So we are freeing up a lot of time. I'll give you a prime example. Upgrades. We all know how much we love upgrades. If it's not a VxRail, my team has to look at a lot of other elements, because you have to check, hey, if this is compatible, if the ESXi is compatible with this or not, blah, blah, blah. VxRail, I would say it's a single click upgrade, basically. It does the upgrades automatically by itself. I mean, not by itself, but mostly it's automated.
I just want to call out Pramod actually said that, because we've had some conversations over the years. So Nancy, this means VxRail has changed quite a bit from the early days.
David, I agree. I was the harshest critic of this upgrades in the past, but I'll give you guys now. So the upgrades are very smooth, and it's just not the upgrades, right? The challenge is when the number of VxRail instances are growing, you just can't have enough people just to do it manually every time. So the upgrade process is really seamless now. So that's a big win for my teams. Because I think we upgrade almost, we all know the VMware vulnerabilities that are hitting us right now. So we are upgrading we upgraded all our 25 VxRails 2 months ago, and we are pursuing another upgrade right now because of a recently released vulnerability. So that is a big factor. So going back to your question, David, to answer it, I'll answer it in two phases. It's freeing up the time, and it's allowing people to explore more opportunities in the other areas. Second thing, what VxRail brings to the table is automation. I'm a big proponent of I want to do automation as much as possible, because that gives us consistency that will allow us to run away from the manual human errors. So my team primarily, they're focusing on automation now. So they are able to bring the time away from doing that daily mundane task, and now they're focusing on automation, and they're able to give the users better experience on a day-to-day basis. So that's an TCO for me. I mean, if I translate that into a TCO, that would save me a lot of dollars from an year-over-year maintenance perspective.
Yeah, and really appreciate that is the value that you're getting out of it, because that's exactly our intent, right? And that's really the VxRail HCI system software, right? That's what brings that automation and the ease of upgrades. And yes, there's absolutely been leaps and bounds in innovation and improvement in that software over the years.
And all
that's
the
what
teams work so hard on that too.
Oh
They
yeah,
really have.
it's incredible. And it's not just the software, it's the tests too, right?
Yep.
You know, you mentioned that, your team would need to be doing, all the validation and everything. That's what our team does. They run it through all the rigor and then just present that to you. And again, it's interesting too, because you said, hey, you could build it. And yeah, I mean, hey, we sell vSAN ready notes, right? And we have great vSAN ready notes that make life easier for folks if they want to do more of that customer managed infrastructure. But, to your point, our goal is to alleviate the teams from having to manage the infrastructure and focus more on the business outcomes and more strategy. So I really appreciate, your testament to that.
Yeah, I mean, I will say this. I either take it hospitality or take it manufacturing. These industries, once upon a time, they saw IT as just, okay, it is in the background. It's not a critical component. But this is my perspective. Someone can disagree on this, but IT came a long way. It became an enabler now rather than just a supporter. Now IT is enabler rather than just supporting some day-to-day ops in past days.
Yeah, Pramod, I've been watching Mohawk for a while, and I think you've joined. One of the reasons why you're at Mohawk now is because you want to be working for a company that sees that. I mean, from what I've watched with Mohawk, you guys have been very early on seeing IT as what I used to in the Air Force call a force multiplier. If you can really leverage IT, now all of a sudden manufacturing, look at all the different things that you can do. And, I don't want to spill the secret sauce, but you guys have applied all sorts of thought and logic to how you manufacture these and then put the carpeting out there, for instance. And you couldn't have done that without offloading a lot of the work for the IT team to the CI and HCI. I mean, Mohawk's been a Converge user group member for quite some time. So that's really cool. And that's really exciting. And, kudos. I'm glad you're excited about it. I want to hear more about these AGVs sometime. I think that's pretty neat. I think
definitely
really
that was cutting the grass for sure, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's the carpeting thing. It's not that Loop Up's not on cutting edge. I mean, you guys were doing cutting edge stuff too at Celtic Manor early on, and now I'm sure I'm going to hear more about it once you get a full 24 months under your belt. But what I think is fantastic about the Converge user group is the folks who are interested in participating. We've got two prime examples here, Chris and Pramod. These are people who see IT as that business partner, as that force multiplier for the business, as this opportunity to play around with really cool stuff and do some fantastic tech and make an impact. And I love bringing, getting together with you guys, whether it's in VR, I prefer it in person. But this participation here, it's really exciting to see that. And it's really neat to get folks talking. And also, I'm sure there's things that Pramod mentioned that, Chris, you might have had a little inkling in the back of your head. And then you're like, oh, wait a minute. Yeah. Oh, I could do that. Or, and then that sparks a conversation. And Nancy, I know you love hanging out with the customers and hearing directly from them. And how that just, it's such a virtuous, feedback loop. It's great.
Yeah, it is. And it's interesting, actually, if I could maybe.
We got a couple minutes.
But just a little future looking, right? So, yeah. So Phil Thomas had put in the chat, is anyone using Cloud Foundation on Rail and what's their experience? And while I'm not sure that you folks are, I think about 25% of our deployments, of our VxRail deployments now are on our VCF deployments. So it's been growing rapidly. But I'm curious about, from your perspectives, Chris and Pramod, what are your thoughts on moving towards a cloud implementation or cloud native and containers and all of that? Like where might your organizations be going as it relates to, running those technologies in the future?
I mean, clouds, is a big part of our business already, globally, and yeah, it always will be there. I think the beauty of that VxRail is the hybrid, like I suppose the work environment now is is the way to go. But yeah, it's the cost management was the main thing with the cloud, and it's just how you control that. But it's good now we have opportunity. Where do we deploy? Do we deploy in the cloud, and which cloud do we deploy in? How do we get to that? Or do we go on-prem, and how do we do that? But VCF is not something that we've used at the moment, but with VxRail always innovating, we're always looking at things, aren't we? So it's something that maybe one for the future for us.
Yeah, I don't know if, and again, I'll go to Pramod, but one of the other announcements that we recently had is you can run AWS EKS anywhere on rail, on-prem, right? So Anthos on rail, on-prem. So like there's a lot of opportunities of, hybrid cloud kind of environments. And I apologize, Pramod, I probably interrupted, but you were about to say, what are your thoughts?
I would say cloud is a very interesting conversation. It has multiple facets, but I'd say this, manufacturing, I'm not shy of saying that IT was, we always are not on the top of the notch advanced people from an IT development perspective, application development. Most of our applications are monolithic. We are exploring opportunities, how we can go into the cloud. We already exist on cloud for some of the workloads, but we are looking into it. And as part of my VxRail refresh, VCF is one of the conversation I'm having with my accounts team, whether we can incorporate with this deal, with the deal we are making with Dell now, and how we can leverage it. So that's a part of conversation, Nancy. But I mean, I love VCF. I'll keep it that way.
Great, yeah. And I think one thing that we'll be doing, for everyone is we're talking satellite nodes, we're talking VCF on VxRail, we're talking this, and it's like, does everybody know that all this exists? And so look forward to, we'll be, developing this landscape kind of story to give everybody a better idea of where you can deploy. That's one thing, and what those form factors are. But the stories that you folks have of all the different potential workloads, all the potential different use cases, and then the benefits that the business gets out of it is what we, really want to speak to. So happy to chat with any customers. Like you said, David, I love talking to the customers and understand that to help us better convey that story out to the broader market.
Yeah, thank you, Nancy. It's been a fantastic in whirlwind VxRail year. So I think certainly for the members, we'll work with you to figure out how we can get that more broadly to the user base who owns VxRail and may not be getting called on by their account team as much as someone who, like Pramod, is in a refresh right now. So his account team might be giving him more information or something, depending on the spectrum there. We know everybody.
David, our account teams are always in touch with our customers.
They should be, yes, they should be. Now we can survey the Converge user group member and get a different temperature check on that.
Okay.
We'll keep the temperature check. What do we have here? We have everything's answered in the Q&A, I think. I think we've kind of cleaned up the chat. Okay, great. With that, I also see Ann has shown up again. Thank you very much, Ann. I will wrap this up. Chris Stanley, thank you very much, sir. Pramod Garlapati, thank you very much, sir. Nancy, ma'am, thank you very much. And it's been a pleasure. I've enjoyed the conversation. Folks, thank you all for attending. We try to do this regularly. We're bringing the sense of community as best we can out to the remote sites while we are not in person. Let us know what we're doing well and let us know where we can improve. We hope to see you out there in person sometime soon. Until then, keep tuning in. And Ann, thank you very much. I'll pass it to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Just a couple quick notes for closing today's program. There is a link to the survey. I mentioned your feedback is extremely helpful. And we also have a couple prizes to distribute. So anyone who completes the survey will be in a drawing to win some prizes. So hopefully that helps. It only takes a few minutes, so appreciate that. As David mentioned too, we have a lot of great events coming up. We have 2 more in our professional series. One is coming up on, the first one is developing the pitch.
Yes,
that
that's
that
right.
one's coming in November. And then the final one is conquering the presentation. So this has been part of a 4-part series. The first one that we did was assessing your infrastructure. Second one was conducting a financial analysis. So we'll have those available for replay soon. So we're looking forward to having that whole package available for everyone to watch. And also keep an eye out for the November virtual program. That will take place on November 18th. We just locked in a great keynote speaker, so we're very excited to share that with everybody soon. And then we'll have our final community hour in December. So lots of good events still coming. Be on the lookout. And of course, if you have any questions, please reach out to our team. We will be happy to help you and of course, direct you to any of our speakers to follow up with questions.
It's member services at convergeusergroup.com.
That's right.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Appreciate you joining us. And thank you to our speakers and also Dell Technologies and VMware for sponsoring today's program. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.